Hello everyone, my name is Keely. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you've been here before. Today we're going to talk about all the books that I read in the month of June. So if you haven't noticed, my background is a little bit different this time because I am currently living in South Africa. I have been incredibly busy, so I haven't been able to film my wrap up yet. So I'm hoping within the next 30 minutes, because I have to leave soon, that I can get through all the books that I read in June. So some stats for the month: I read 12 books in the month of June and I DNF'd one. If you weren't aware, I do not count my DNFs towards my Goodreads goal or towards the books that I read. So 12 books completed and 1 DNF. My total pages for the month were 3,676, which I feel like is pretty usual for me. And as far as ratings go, I had 2 1-star, I had 1 2-star, I had 2 3-star, I had 4 4-star, and I had 3 5-stars. I'm also trying to read more physical books because I have been using my library a lot, which is great, but I also have a lot of physical books on my TBR. And this month I managed to read 8 physical books and 4 ebooks, which is really great because this is the first time in a while that I've had more physical reads than ebook reads. So I'm going to talk about the book that I DNF'd first, and that was Local Gone Missing by Fiona Barton. I DNF'd this book at 10%. Now this is supposed to be a mystery thriller, and I'm pretty sure it's set in a small village in England, and I think there's like a fair involved and some 2 teenagers end up dead. This book was really hard for me to read the first 10%. I did not agree with the writing style, and the characters just seemed so boring to me. There were also a lot of characters and it switched point of views a lot, and I had no idea was who. I just could not follow along, and in the first 10% I was already so confused I couldn't see me finishing the book and understanding what was going on, so unfortunately I did put this one down. Alright, so now I'm going to talk about the books in the order that I read them in. So the first book I read in June was All of Us Villains by Amanda Foody and Christine Lynn Herman. So in this world, we follow a kingdom called Ilvernath, and every 20 years there is a deadly tournament involving 7 magical families. So this is a fantasy book, there is magic involved, and the magic is very interesting because in this world, there's one family that has the high magic, and whoever wins this tournament every 20 years, that family gets the high magic. So each family sends 1 member, so there are 7 teenagers in this tournament, and they fight to the death. So whoever wins gets all the high magic for the next 20 years, and the way they use the magic is they use rings. So they are able to infuse the spells with the rings, and in order to use the spell, they have to have their rings with them. It's very interesting. I felt like it wasn't extremely explained, but I don't mind if magic systems aren't super in-depth, but if that is something that you would like, then you might struggle with the magic system a little bit. But so we are in Ilvernath, and every 20 years, like I said, the blood moon rises and the veil over the tournament lowers and the tournament begins. And usually the tournament is a very private affair, but recently somebody has released a tell-all book, so now the entire nation knows about this tournament and everybody is watching, and a lot of people do not agree with it. I really loved this book. I loved that there was a deadly tournament involved. Anytime I hear that, that is one of my buzzwords. I love deadly games, and this one was done so interesting and so well. So like I said, they are under this veil, they are in this tournament, you cannot get out and people cannot get in, and there are 7 different locations that usually a family will claim during the tournament. So for example, there is a castle, there is a cave, there are also 7 different objects. So for example, they are all magical. There is a sword and there is a cape and there's just various other objects and locations. I loved the tournament. I thought it was really neat how it was done, but this is also a multiple point of view story, and I believe in this story we follow 4, maybe 5 point of views, and I loved every one of them so much. There was never one time in the story where I wanted to see another point of view or got bored of someone. I thought everyone was incredibly interesting. They all had their own unique voices, and I just really had a great time with this one, and I cannot wait for the sequel. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Across the Greengrass Fields by Shauna Maguire. Now this is book 6 in the Wayward Children series, and in this one in particular we follow Reagan, who goes to like a grassland world, and so she actually ends up living with some centaurs. Most people in this world actually have hooves, and so we see a lot of creatures and just different mythical beings, and I actually really loved this world. This is one of my favorite books in the series. It's either my second or third favorite. I really loved Reagan as a character, and I loved watching her just join this family and grow as a person, and I think she was one of the wisest characters in the series so far. If you don't know, the Wayward Children series is like a portal fantasy, and so with every other book we go to a new world and we follow a child in this new world, and the other books follow when the children come back, and now they are in a boarding school, because when they come back from the world they belong in into our world, it is very difficult for them to adapt back to this world, so they have to go to a boarding school to, you know, kind of get accustomed and see if they can find their world again. Like I said, I really thought the world that we visited was really fascinating, and Reagan is one of my favorite characters. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. Now this is a thriller book, and we follow Dr. Chloe Davis. And when Chloe was 12 years old, there were a bunch of young girls that were taken and murdered in her hometown. By the end of the summer, her father was actually arrested as the serial killer for these killings. And now, after that, 20 years later, Chloe is a woman. She is a psychologist. She has a great relationship, but unfortunately, young girls have started going missing again, and they turn up murdered, and it is eerily familiar to her, and it is very similar to her father's crimes. So as you can imagine, this kind of takes her world for a spin, and she kind of becomes an unreliable narrator because she is so afraid and anxious, and she doesn't know what's going on. Now, I really loved Chloe as a character, and I actually felt her anxiety with her, and I was so nervous and anxious the whole time I was reading this because I felt for her so hard. I really loved the twist in this book, and I can't go into too much detail about my feelings because it is a thriller, so it's hard to talk about because I don't want to spoil anything, but I thought it was really well done and really interesting, and I had a great time, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Now, the next 6 books, this is going to go by quick because I'm actually not really going to talk about them. I'll tell you what they were, and I'll tell you my rating because I did an entire vlog about these next 6 books. They are all Colleen Hoover books, and I did a 24-hour Colleen Hoover reading vlog, so I will leave that down below. It is probably one of my favorite videos I have ever done in the 6 years I've been on BookTube, so please go watch it because I just love it so much. But the first book I read in that video is Ugly Love. This one was mediocre, and I gave it 3 stars. Next, I read November 9, one of my favorite Colleen Hoover books. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Confess. I really enjoyed this one, and I gave it 4 stars. After that, I read Without Merit. This one was really confusing, and I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. Then I read Maybe Someday, which I hate this book, and I gave it 1 star. And of course, I had to torture myself some more and read the novella to Maybe Someday, and I read Maybe Not, which I also gave 1 star. The next book I read was The Children on the Hill by Jennifer McMahon, and this was my first Jennifer McMahon book, so I was very excited to read it. So this book follows 2 alternating timelines. One of them is 1978, and we follow 2 children who live with their grandma, and their grandma is actually a doctor at the nearby psychiatric hospital, and these 2 children are convinced that monsters exist, and so they have their very own monster club, and they believe that all the patients at the psychiatric hospital are actually monsters. For example, there's this one guy that they see and he's always very itchy, so they were like, he's a werewolf, like absolutely. The other chapters we follow are 2019, and we follow a woman named Lizzie Shelley, who is the host of a popular monster podcast, and she hunts monsters down, and she decides to go on this case because girls are getting abducted, and she says that she knows monsters better than anyone else because her sister is one. Crazy, right? So I really loved the alternating chapters. I thought both chapters were incredibly fascinating, and I was intrigued as to what was happening in both of them. I was not bored with either of them. There's also a massive twist in here that I did not see coming. I almost feel like I should have, so I don't know if it was just me or if it was just really good, because I feel like it was really good, but I could also be a little bit dumb. I'm not sure. I thought the monster aspect was really intriguing, so the perfect description I have for this book is supernatural meets Stranger Things, and I feel like that's all you need to know, but I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed the writing, and I'm definitely looking forward to more Jennifer McMahon books. The next book I read was Where the Drowned Girls Go by Shauna McGuire. Now this is book 7 in the Wayward Children series, and as I mentioned before, every other book follows a world we go to or a boarding school. And this one in particular is the boarding school one, but instead of the boarding school that we know with Miss Eleanor, they go to a boarding school where the children do not want to return to those worlds. So we follow a girl named Cora who is tired of being called by the oceans, and so she wants to go to this boarding school so that she can get rid of it and never have to go back to these worlds again. Now this boarding school is abusive and dark and not as fun as the other one, and there's deeper, darker things going on here, and that's all I'm gonna say. But I did really enjoy this one. I love how, like, in the boarding schools a lot of times there's like a mystery involved, and this one definitely had that. And I love how Cora kind of had this amazing character development and really grew into herself and became such a strong, independent person. I mean, she already was, but she really took charge in this book. I had a great time. I really enjoyed it, and there were definitely some interesting worlds that I'm really hoping that we visit soon, because one of them was like a Halloween world. Super interesting. I know the next book is like a lost and found world, so I'm also excited about that one, but I give this one 4 out of 5 stars. And the last book I read in the month of June was Eros Shah and the Song of Death by Roshni Chokshi. This is book 2 in the Pandava series. So this follows a young girl named Eros Shah, and this is under the Rick Riordan Presents imprint, so this is Hindu mythology. And Hindu mythology, there is so much, and I didn't know a whole lot about it or anything at all before reading these books. And so at times I can feel a little confused because there are so many names and characters to follow. Luckily, there is a glossary in the back that kind of helps me along. This one, I think I enjoyed it a little bit more than the first one, because this one does involve kind of a zombie type of thing. Also, in the first one, I got kind of annoyed by Aru and Minnie, but we were introduced to more characters that went with them on their adventures, and I feel like those new characters helped balance Aru and Minnie's personalities out, and so the fact that we were following more characters made it more interesting. Unfortunately, I still kind of got lost and a little bit bored along the way, but it is fun, and I love that it has Hindu representation and all the characters are people of color, which is really great. And I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars, but I did enjoy it more than the first one. So those are all the books that I read in the month of June. I think my favorite book was All of Us Villains. It is going to be probably in my top books of the year. That may be a little too soon to speak, but I just really enjoyed it, especially because I am not a fantasy reader and it's a fantasy book. And so when I enjoy a fantasy book, I really love it. But let me know your favorite book that you read in the month of June. Sorry if you heard like extraneous noises. Like I said, I am in an apartment complex. There is construction outside. There is nature sounds. Let me show you my view real quick because it's actually so incredible. So this is the view outside of my window. I get to see Table Mountain every day, and it's beautiful. But once again, please go watch my Colleen Hoover reading vlog if you are interested in my thoughts or just want to have a good time, because I really enjoyed filming it, and I will sometimes watch it because I just think it's so much fun. But if you have made it this far in the video, please leave like a cloud emoji, because there are clouds on the mountains and on my sweater. So I know that you watched this far and enjoyed it. But I think that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, all my social media links will be down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!